CASL. What does it mean for you and your dealership? CASL is the Canadian anti-spam legislation, which defines how you're legally able to communicate with their customers given consent. So these laws can be a little bit obtuse. Let's break them down. Number 1, every second Friday of the year, you can send an email. Number 2, if it's a full moon, you can use a smoke signal to target a carrier pigeon to send your communications to your customers. Okay, it's not really that complicated. Let's break it down for real and how you're going to use CASL in Activix. This is Quick Tips with Activix. Before we begin, if you like this type of content, go ahead and leave a like down below. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave us a comment, and of course, subscribe to get more videos just like this. So what exactly is CASL? Well, it defines consent for the consumer. Now, the important thing that you need to remember about consent is that it automatically expires unless indicated otherwise. For example, if the customer has a clause in their sales contract that stipulates that they can always be communicated with at any time, well then in that case, the expiring consent will not apply. The first type of consent is temporary enrollment. This is defined by how the customer came into contact with your dealership or what happened at the dealership. Number 1, if the customer submitted a web lead or came into contact with the dealership in any shape or form, they have 6 months of temporary enrollment automatically. Number 2, if a sale occurs, for example, a cash deal, there is 2 years of valid enrollment automatically. Number 3, if there's a signed contract with an end date, you can communicate with this customer for 2 years after the end contract date. So, web leads, for example, 6 months from the date of the web lead coming into the dealership, a cash deal, 2 years after the cash deal is sold, and for leasing and or financing, 2 years after the end contract date. That's temporary enrollment. It's pretty simple. Now, the second type of enrollment, confirmed enrollment, this one is in perpetuity, forever. So if, for example, in your sales contract, once again, you have a clause that stipulates that this customer agrees to be communicated with forever, in this case, the customer has confirmed their enrollment. Some people also have a clause on their website. Once a web lead submits the web lead, they agree to be communicated with. Managing and understanding consent in Activix is actually super simple. Managers have complete control over accessing and modifying consent directly in the platform. If you'd like to take a look at the consent status in a customer's file, you can do so by simply clicking here. You can also manually send a consent request, which will email the customer asking them for a renewed consent by clicking here. We can even set this up automatically with an automation. Before the consent expires, automatically send an email. We'll have a video exactly on that subject in our EXP platform. You can access the learning platform by clicking here in your profile page. Now, lastly, for an individual customer, you can review and modify the individual consent for each person by clicking here and then putting a valid reason as to why you modified the consent for this individual person. Now, let's say you want to edit multiple customers at the same time in Activix. You can do so with a mass action. So in this example, let's say I added a clause to my sales contract exactly 1 year ago that says that all of my customers agree to be communicated with up until they decline or they opt out. Step 1, we're going to filter out our customers. We're going to start by selecting the current year as the date range. Step 2, we're going to choose sold customers. Step 3, we're going to display the consent and consent end columns. Step 4, here you can consult the status of everyone's consent in this list. But seeing as we're reaching out to only sold lead, it doesn't really matter. Here we can go and start selecting our customers without filtering by consent. Step 5, select the page of leads and then select all the leads. Step 6, select the edit button and then select manual consent for all those leads that you just selected, and then once again putting a valid reason. In this case, you can put sales contract clause. And now you're done. That's really all there is to consent in Activix. It's not any more complicated than that. Stay tuned for more videos just like this, giving you the upper hand on your CRM.